data keeps changing, how you can be secure of all the analysis that you've done.
Welcome to the Lean Scale podcast, where we talk about everything RevOps. Thank you for listening. The CRM is the backbone of your revenue operation, and I'm really excited to dive into the 5 things you need to be doing with Salesforce with my co-founder, Lean Scale's chief architect, most importantly, my good friend, Sakai. Sakai, thanks for being here with us today to talk through it.
Of course, Anthony, thanks for inviting me. I was dying to come here and discuss a little bit of the tech side of the house. And my 5 recommendations, I hope they help the listeners get the best use of their CRM.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't think of anybody who knows Salesforce better than you. For those who don't know, Sakai and I worked together at 3 scaling B2B tech companies before starting Lean Scale. Sakai was always a systems architect, connecting Salesforce with HubSpot, Marketo, the rest of our go-to-market tools, and built beautiful operations. He made all my dreams come true as a VP of RevOps. So I can't think of anybody who has better recommendations than you. And I know it's not going to end with today. Today's just going to be the top 5, but we're going to have a lot more content on how to get the most out of your CRM in the future.
Yep, for sure. If you're down, let's start with the very first one.
All right, yeah, let's dive in. What's the first thing people need to be doing if they're using Salesforce?
Of course, the very first one recommendation, top one, is enable history tracking. This is very important to understand how data evolved over time, diagnose any issues or errors that may arise in your database. Of course, it also gives admins and users historical snapshot of the data changes that you had in your CRM. Super important for you, for any business, important for admins, important for revenue operations. If you need to know what happened in the past, go look into history track.
It's interesting too on history tracking. There's a lot of third-party tools that tap into that history tracking intelligence, forecasting tools, intelligence tools, productivity tools. So having that enabled I wouldn't say it's just important for your CRM, but it's also going to be the backbone to prepare for using other technology as well.
Right. If you have a well-tuned operations, you always have to lock in some additional third-party tools. They are always looking to understanding your the past, what happened in your history tracking, and especially revenue. They really try and understand. And also now with all the AI coming up, they are always looking to your past, so they can kind of try to predict the future a little better.
All right. What's the second thing we need to be doing if we're using Salesforce?
Of course. Second is ensure timestamps are added to your most important critical objects. When I say timestamps, I'd say timestamps to go and look into how stages changed, statuses that you have, or any field that you use that is important for you to track an important change. So, if you, as an example, if you're trying to understand how a lead stage or lead status has changed over time, or opportunity stages are timestamping how they timestamp through a course of the opportunity life cycle. Here's what we do. We create custom fields that track every change you do in each of the stages that you have in an opportunity, or any lead status that's important for the operations. They're very important for you to understand, how customers interact with with a person, with an SDR, or how the opportunity evolved over time. because history tracking that we mentioned in the first place, it's not um, it doesn't it's not so how I'd say it's not so good at reporting. We can report on some of the changes, but um, creating the timestamps creates an additional layer of analysis that we can do for an object, as an example. Um,
Yeah, the way I've seen you do it. We do this often for our customers. We always had this at the companies that we worked at. But you have a dedicated field. So when did this lead move to this lead lifecycle stage? When did this customer move to this customer stage? And the most common, when did this opportunity move to the next sales stage? So that way you can report directly on that field. And then you can also do really quick sales cycle data, use it for conversion data, um, and not have to dig through the history tracking, but you have it easily accessible for building reports and dashboards native in Salesforce.
Correct.
All right, Sakai, what's tip number 3 that people need to be following with their Salesforce instance?
Well, tip number 3 is freeze your closed opportunity data. So important for sales
That seems obvious,
forecasting.
right? Doesn't that seem
Yeah,
like everybody would have that, or it'd be like out of the box in Salesforce? But how many times do you
right.
go in with close one changes all the time?
People always assume like, oh, this data will never change. But people makes mistakes, or an uninformed salesperson would probably go and change. There's a series of things that may happen to a close opportunity. They're all crazy. um, but you need to put you know all the barriers and the security in place so data never changes. You have a good sales forecasting. You can do the best analysis that you can with the close one data. It's important with your commissions plan. Uh, you don't want to mess up with people's money, and of course, it's important to identify trends and patterns. If data keeps changing, how you can be secure of all the analysis that you've done, because the moment someone changes this small little thing on an opportunity, the entire analysis is, I don't know, invalidated, right?
Yeah, and the way I've seen you do it, and I don't know if this is your recommendation, but it's pretty much total lockdown. The only person who can make a change
Right.
to close an opportunity is the super admin in your instance.
Yeah. I like to put in place, validation rules. I also like to put, how can I say, automation. Uh, People think they change it, but they always go back to what they were before you say it. I just want to make sure I put extra layers of security so that it's always clean, always the same every time. Plus, we do backup of the data every week, so it's hard to uh, try to go over these layers and break the system that we put in place.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Super important.
Mhm.
Tip number 4.
Yep. Tip number four is make sure data from leads go into all the other objects after they are converted. So we are talking about leads converting to accounts, contacts, and opportunities. This is so important. We always want to make sure the lead lifecycle stage timestamps are in each object that we're touching after it's converted. We want to make sure lead source, I don't know, lead source details, as an example, are, um, well, they flow into opportunities. Um, and, lead owner, SDRs, every piece of information that's important later in the process, they need to be added in there. So, you know, if we want to convert and the data is not at at the end of uh, the at the end of the flow, we lose data. We break the system that we put in place, and it all contributes to put noise into your business, which we try and avoid the first time, right?
I think a practical question I would always get as a VP of Ops is which lead source has the most closed won opportunities? And if you're capturing the lead source on that lead object and then you don't bring that lead source over, it becomes nearly
Mm-hmm.
impossible to answer that question. Um,
Right.
and then, or what's the full sales cycle for marketing qualified lead to close? So without having everything on the same object, it makes reporting a little bit more difficult. So
Mm-hmm.
tying those leads and the important data on that lead to that opportunity is really, really important, mainly for reporting and understanding how to get the most out of your marketing channels. So
Right.
Sakai, wrap it up for us. Tip number 5, what else do you need to be doing in Salesforce if you're not doing it already?
Of course, tip number 5 is make sure your validation rules are in place. You know, you want to make sure the data entered in your system meets your business processes. Um, we're talking about from the very simple, make sure amount is in place before you close an opportunity, to make sure that the close date is not in the past, um, and all the way into like a more complex, tied to your um, I don't know, the let's say which sales, how do you say the sales, I lost the word, Anthony, forgot.
Sales methodologies, like making sure
Yeah,
like you're
sales
following net
methodology.
pick,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So make sure like your sales methodology is in place, and you ask for the data, um, the right time and then in the right place. So in each stage you're going through, there are pieces of information that are important for each of these stages, and you're gonna end up in enforcing the data integrity is in place and accurate, because gonna prevent people from saving a record without the and right piece of information that you need.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. I mean, having the right level of validation rules in place to actually inform the process, but maybe not overdoing it to add too many controls is a really healthy balance. Um, so just to wrap it up, 5 things that you need to be doing in Salesforce if you're not doing it already. Enable history tracking, get that rich audit history on the fields that are important to you. Timestamp your staging, lead staging, opportunity staging, account staging. If you're doing proof of concepts or proof of values, add staging there and timestamp it. It's the only way you're going to get sales cycle and conversion data. Freeze your close one data. You don't need to go back to a board meeting and have to redo all the data on your closed one opportunities because somebody's been going in the past and changing things. Make sure those fields and pieces of data that are important on your leads make their way to opportunities because they're separate objects. They're not typically related to each other. So making sure you're bringing that data over is super important. And then tip number 5, put the validation rules in place that align with your sales process and your customer journey to make sure you're capturing the right data at the right time. Sakai, thank you so much. I know our listeners are going to really appreciate this, and I know we're going to do some more of these in the future. And I really appreciate you being here.
Of course, Anthony. Thanks. Looking forward for the next episodes, and I hope you guys enjoyed the 5 tips on how to make successful operations from the tech perspective.
Thanks, Sakai.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you like the discussion, please like, share, and subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss a new episode.